is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm sure you already saw the title. We are doing rear suspension on the Toyota pickup. So last video we got all the long travel figured out, we got everything powder coated, everything looking good. Now we need to tackle the rear. So the plan for the rear is we're doing 63-inch Chevy leaf springs, which is a very common swap for this truck because they're a very great riding spring and they flex really well. And then to widen up the rear to match the front, we're doing a T100 rear axle, which is gonna match the front perfect because it's got T100 axles up front. The front's basically extended out to a T100 stance, so a T100 rear axle is gonna go perfect in here. Plus it's a little bit bigger, it's 8.4 inch, which actually, I'm pretty sure they still measure 8 inch, the ring gear. They call it an 8.4. I think they're just maybe about that much stronger, not much. But either way, it should handle the 350. If not, we'll figure something else out. But we gotta get this thing torn out. So we'll pull out rear axle, pull out the leaf springs, and I'm gonna leave the mounts for now because we want to measure off the factory spring hangers to the new spring hangers. Now this is a very common swap. So the internet's got all the measurements already. I looked it up. They say to go about 9 to 9.5 inches forward on your front spring hanger. And then we'll just mount the rear spring hanger to get the correct shackle angle. So that's the game plan. Let's get this thing ripped apart, get some new leaf springs mocked up, and then we do have some work to do to the axle, but I don't know if we'll tackle that in this video. It is geared differently. It's got a 430 gear. The truck is 410. Actually, one of the local guys that follows me had a 410 8.4 inch third member. So we're gonna swap that in. We'll probably do that in the future. I just wanna get this axle and everything mocked up in here, get everything burned in and sitting right on some 63s. Well, we got the axle ripped out. We still gotta pull the leaf springs off, but we need to get some room in here. I need to move this beater out of here. This thing is just kind of collecting dust in the shop. It's honestly been so long since I started it even. The battery is pretty slow, so we gotta get this thing fired up, get it out of here. We'll get the new axle, get the new leaf springs in. We got to prep the new axle because this obviously isn't the new one, but we gotta cut the mounts off, the spring perches off there, and just get it ready to go in, and we'll get the leaf springs ready. We got to put new bushings in them. We got a bunch of work to do. You know what, guys, I think I have a problem. Every time I finish a build, it sits and it just collects dust. This FJ, like I said, I probably haven't started it in probably 2 months, and it's just collecting dust in the shop. Now I've been trying to get out more, but you know, when you start a new build, especially with the YouTube channel, when you have to stay up to date on videos, you got to keep cranking out content. It's hard to just stop content and go play. I mean, yeah, I can do content on driving this thing around, going four-wheeling and whatnot, but you get started on a build and I kind of just dive in and just focus on that. But either way, I'm kind of curious how many of you guys are local to Spokane, Washington. There's a ORV park in Spokane. I've been thinking about doing a little meetup just because now that the weather is turning around, we got spring coming soon. I'm thinking I want to do a meetup. I'll bring the FJ out and you guys can check it out if you want to see it. Also, I might be interested in selling this thing here in the next few months. I may be listing it for sale because I need the money I want to extend my shop. I am literally just running out of space in the shop and I want to punch the back out. I want to basically double the size of the shop. So that's going to cost a lot of money that I don't have sitting around. So the FJ, I really don't want to sell it. You guys know I spent almost 2 years building it and it's really going to suck to sell it, but it will enable me to move on to bigger and better things. So I don't know, if you guys are interested, feel free to email me. I'll have my email address down in the description box. But let me know. Like I said, let me know if you guys are local and are interested in doing a little meetup at the RV park. I think it'd be fun to meet you guys. And like I said, if you guys want to check out the FJ, I'll bring this thing out. We'll go have a little fun and I get to meet some of you guys. All right, we are ready to start mocking up some leaf spring hangers. I got this kit from Rough Stuff. I decided to go the easy route instead of building everything myself. By the time I bought U-bolts and bushings and bolts and everything to complete this kit, it wasn't that much more to just buy the whole kit. So that's what I ended up doing. But I do see one problem with this T100 axle. We got the spring perches here, but I don't know if you're familiar with these T100 axles. Right here you can see they're round, but then they neck up here and it's like a square housing. And there's another perch down here. They actually had this under a two-wheel drive, but that's right where we need to mount this. And it's hanging off one side onto the round and on the square on the other side. And the problem is, I can cut that out no problem, but how you typically set this up is you wouldn't weld these on. You just basically set them on, put the U-bolts on, and then you can adjust your pinion angle. Well, that's going to be tough to figure out because once we cut this square, it's not going to rotate. So we're going to have to do some a little extra measuring and figuring on this. But either way, we should be able to get the springs hung. So let's grab the hangers and tack them onto the frame. Like I said, we're going to go about 9 inches forward on the front hanger, and then we'll get the leaves up there and figure out our shackle angle. We'll tack everything together. That way we can put weight on the truck, get it on the ground, and we can check our shackle angle in the back. Little tip for you guys here: when you're getting your spring hangers on the front, take a piece of flat bar or square tube or something, run it across and make sure it's straight. That way you can just push your spring hanger right up to that bar. That way you know that the spring hanger is nice and straight with the frame. So that seemed to work pretty good. We got everything measured out here. We're about 9 1/4 from hole to hole here, which should put us really close. So we should be able to tack these on. We'll get the springs on, and then we'll figure out our rear shackle angle. So let's tack these in. We'll get our new bushings in the springs, and then, like I said, we'll throw the springs on, and then we'll have to figure out how to make this work with this square housing. All right guys, got these springs in, and we got the shackle hanger and the shackle on. Now we're just gonna take an educated guess, and we're just gonna tack this and get some weight on it and see where it sits. We want our shackle to be about 30 degrees at ride height. You can totally go from like 45 to 20, and it does affect the spring rate, but it seems like most people like around 30 degrees. So we're gonna set this just a little back from 90. We're probably, I mean, 90's there. I might go like 80, 75 or 80 degrees with no weight at all on it. And then once we get the axle in, we'll drop the truck down and we'll see how far the shackle comes back. Like I said, around 30 degrees is about what you want. So we'll get these in place, and you want to measure the springs, make sure they're completely straight with each other. You don't want them obviously bowed in or out, and then even on both sides on the frame, and we should be good to tack these in. Well, there we go. Truck is sitting on its own weight. Everything looks really good with the shackle angle. I'm really happy with that. It is a little higher in the rear than I would hope. So there's a couple things we can do. One, we could pull out a leaf, and two, what we're gonna do for sure is we're gonna French in this front spring hanger. These brackets are actually designed to be Frenched in, which means cutting up into the frame and recessing that bracket up into the frame. On a rock crawler, it'll help with rocks getting hung up on there and whatnot, but honestly, it makes it a lot stronger, and it'll lower it maybe about a ½ inch. We're gonna recess that up about 1 inch. So we'll gain a ½ inch there. Maybe maybe this springs will settle down a little bit, but probably not a whole lot since they are used. But like I said, it's a little bit higher if you get back and really look at it. Definitely higher in the back, so we could pull a leaf out. But for now, what I wanted to do, I just wanted to get this thing on its weight, make sure our angles look right, make sure our tire looks centered in the wheel well, which it does. It looks perfect. So we're gonna leave that. This is the old axle, so we still got to figure out the spring mounts or the spring perches on this new axle. Everything looks really good. Let's pull it back apart. Let's French in those front mounts, and then we'll work on this axle, getting those spring perches made up and working right. Well, we are looking much better this go around with Frenching that hanger in the front, and then I did move the rear shackle hanger forward a little bit to give me a little bit more angle, which in turn helped drop the truck a little bit. We are sitting absolutely level, perfectly level, right where I want it. So that's about, that shackle angle right now is about 40 degrees, which I think I like. I think I'm gonna leave it right there. So we are good to go on all of the shackle hangers, spring hangers, and all that stuff. Now we need to get crafty on our axle perches for the spring. So let's get that knocked out. I'm just gonna cut new ones. It's gonna be a lot faster than trying to modify the ones we already have. I can just design everything in CAD, cut it out on the plasma table. It's gonna be much easier and faster that way. All right, guys, we got the new axle in with the new spring perches just tacked on. Checked all my pinion angles. Everything looks really good. So the transfer case is pointed down about 3 degrees. So you want to basically point the axle up about 3 degrees to match with a single U-joint on both sides. If you got a double cardan on the transfer case, you'll want to point the pinion directly at the transfer case. But with the setup we have on here with a single U-joint and a single U-joint, you basically want to match the angles. And you should have the axle like a degree or two down, because when it's under torque, it'll lift up. So we are sitting perfect right now. I'm liking the shackle angle. I'm liking the Frenched in hangers, and check out the width. So actually these T100 axles are a touch wider than the T100 front in factory form. So you can see it is sticking out a little bit. We're gonna have to do something with fenders, but everything is looking really good. So I think at this point we can take it all apart, fully weld in all the spring hangers and spring perches and everything, because everything looks perfect. And then we got to measure for shock length. And then next video we'll have to set up shocks and bump stops and all that. But either way, let's get this torn apart and fully welded. Well, a quick FYI on the T100 axle, everything is swapped on e-brakes and brake lines. So I had to cut all these brackets off. This was over here. I had to move that there, and then the little guide for the e-brake was here. I had to cut that off, swap it, and then make a new mount for the brake line there. So we should be good to go there now. We will have to make extensions for the e-brake cable, unless I can find a T100 one, but it should be pretty easy just to make a little extension for each side because the axle's wider. So last thing we really got to do is chop the factory spring hangers off the frame there, and then we can get the axle back in and do all of our measuring for shock length. Well guys, axle is in and it is looking good. So now what I need to do is measure for shocks, and next video we're going to tackle shocks, bump stops, e-brake, brake lines, because I do have to redo all the brake lines, and a few other things. We're probably going to have to make custom upper brackets for the shocks, because I want the longest shocks I can fit on here to maximize our travel with these 63s. So I'm hoping I can fit a 12 or a 14-inch shock, but basically what we're gonna do is just lift this thing up into the air, get the axle at full droop, measure that, and then figure out where our full stuff is roughly, and then add maybe like an inch to it. Just, you don't want the shock bottoming out. But either way, we'll get kind of those numbers and then go, and I'm gonna do the Bilsteins to match the front. Well anyways, I'm gonna go order some parts and we'll see you guys in the next video. Hope you enjoy this one. Go smash that thumbs up button, comment, subscribe. We'll catch you in the next one.